Good morning.
Good morning, Rod. It's been about a little over a year since we last had a conversation.
It's been 2 years.
2 years, okay, a lot over a year. So I just want to introduce you to our listeners. Rod, you were in Auroville for several years, and you were involved in many different projects, which I'd like you to tell us about. You were just to give an idea to our listeners about what you've been involved in. You've been involved in NES, in a project called IRD, and in the University of Human Unity.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about those things.
So for the last 10 years, I've been here, managing to do a few interesting things. I think that NES is probably the one that has had the best success. We got an affiliation with the Central Board of Secondary Education in 2008 and started with 50 students, high school students. There was really no high school program in Auroville at that time for Tamil students that were not in the mainstream. And even the mainstream had a pretty weak upper-level secondary program at that time. So this made it possible for students both from Auroville schools and outreach schools to have a high school program, and also one of the best in the country, because the government of India just at that time introduced a radical new progressive education system for CBSE schools. And I was a principal and a teacher in the States for the past 25 years, and I saw that it was great and we needed it. So we did it, and last year, 4 of the graduates from NES who are now in bachelor's and master's programs, some of them in the University of Pondicherry, made a presentation to the governing board, which was very impressive. And we got an increase in the budget.
Was this year?
Because of that last year.
Okay, great. Congratulations
so now
on that.
finally some new buildings are being built on that campus. Mm-hmm. And the population has gone up from 50 to 100. Mm-hmm. But, we could be offering a program like that to 1,000 students. And the fact that I started one in 2008 just meant that it was about 20 years too late. It could have been done along the way, and one of the big problems that I had was a refusal on the part of Sire to support it at all, and it never has.
What did the village children have to, I know there was an issue there. What was...
Well, wait a minute, what issue was there?
Between Sire and Ness.
What was that issue?
I remember the school lunches stopped first, so that
wasn't first.
That was that was when it emerged to the public.
That was like 4 or 5 years later.
Okay, so that was a little bit.
So we had school lunches in the beginning, and we got funding authorized by the governing board, not by Auroville and not by Sire, but by the governing board itself. And so our project went on because it was needed and it was recognized by the governing board, fortunately, as being valuable. Sire didn't want to commit to it for a couple of reasons. One is that because it's a CBSE program, it has to be accountable to the government of India. And people in education in Auroville don't want to be accountable to anybody. And then, on the other hand, the financial picture would have meant that Sire allocates money to a project which had considerable potential, and that would have meant a reduction of money.
Was this based on ideological educational principles, which you felt were progressive, and they felt maybe would be pushing children towards a more consumer kind of society goals in education?
In my opinion, no. Our program is even more progressive than Auroville school programs generally in some ways.